everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for the second edition of this program, this series that promises to be very interesting, enlightening, inspiring, and honestly challenging. This is the Making of a Transformational Leader on Amalgate Radio Communications, and my name is Tolu Omadara. Thank you for joining us for this episode. And today we're going to be looking at the element of visioning in transformational leadership. I'm going to say that again. Today we're going to be looking at the element of visioning in transformational leadership. In other words, we're going to be exploring the vision setting element of transformational leadership. I repeat, the vision setting element of transformational leadership. Now, let's do a quick recap of what we talked about last week. So last week, we one of the things we camped around was a particular definition of someone named Daft, who gave this definition of transformational leadership. He said, and I quote, "Transformational leadership is characterized by the ability to bring about significant change." Take note of that word, or that phrase, significant change, right? Transformational leadership, according to Daft, is characterized by the ability to bring about significant change. He also said transformational leaders have the competence and character to lead change in the organization's vision, strategy, and culture, as well as promote innovation in products and technologies. For him, rather than focusing on the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals, in other words, just giving people rules rather than, defining strategy, rather than co-creating, rather than taking them on a journey, rather than doing that, instead of focusing on the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals, instead of those things, some of those things I just talked about, transformational leaders focus on vision, they focus on values, and they focus on relationships to engage followers and build change leaders who in turn build other change leaders. That was very interesting for me, particularly because of the succession elements, because transformational leaders are actually very future oriented. From the beginning, they're already thinking about the end. I think it was Stephen Covey who said, begin with the end in mind. Nothing is probably closer to the heart of a transformational leader than succession, than continuity, than maintaining change. And that was why this definition of Daft really resonated with me when he said the build change leaders who in turn build other change leaders, right? We talked a little bit about the SET theory last week too. SET being the social engagement theory, which is basically about the principle of reciprocity. And that's the relationship element that Daft was also referring to. Transformational leaders understand that it's about creating an environment where people feel cared for, people feel nurtured, people feel developed, people feel built. Then they in turn also give back to the organization or the institution that has nurtured them. Now, this week, like we said, we are looking at the vision setting element of transformational leadership. We're not camping around the issue of relationships. Transformational leaders are not transactional. In fact, by its very nature, the word transformational, according to some people, some concepts, some people who have looked at this issue, they will tell you that the other side of it is transactional, right? So transformational leaders are anything but transactional. They are, within a certain context, the opposite of transactional. They are relational. They think about the relationship, right? So we're not looking at we're not looking at the relational aspect of that this week. We looked a little bit at that last week. So this week, we are looking more at the element of visioning in transformational leadership. Now, let me tell you why this element is very, very important. But before I do, let me go to another definition that will probably set the tone for this. It says transformational leadership is a leadership style that articulates a dynamic vision. Remember, I told you to take note of the word lead change, right? Transformational leadership is a leadership style that articulates a dynamic vision and ambitious goals and motivates followers. I think I want to stop here because there's a lot to say around here. I have never seen a truly transformational leader that does not have a compelling vision. I have never seen a truly transformational leader that does not have a vision that arrests the followers, that compels the followers to want to follow, to believe in that vision, to buy into that vision, to be sold out to that vision. Extremely important. It's a leadership style that articulates a dynamic vision. Let me tell you something. At the core of human beings is a desire to do the impossible. We are, in my opinion, human beings are made to break boundaries. Human beings are made to explore new frontiers. Human beings are wired to do, quote and unquote, the seemingly impossible. That's why I'm not going to call it the impossible. And so when they find a transformational leader who understands and has activated and developed his or her ability to, to articulate that compelling vision that challenges the notion of impossibility. When human beings find such a transformational leader, they connect with him on her very, very strongly because he or she simply awakens a desire that is already in every one of us, latently in every one of us. And so one of the most important things we need when we talk about the making of a transformational leader, now, I'm not going to go into the theory of whether leaders are born or made. This program is about the making of a transformational leader, because even a so-called born leader can refuse to make himself or herself, and even a leader who appears not to be born can be made. So for us on this particular program, when we talk about the making of a transformational leader, we are working from the assumption that anyone can be a transformational leader. Is just about accepting responsibility, because even if you have the so-called traits of leadership by nature, if you refuse to nurture it, you are going to find yourself underachieving, and you may never be worthy of the label transformational leader. So we're going to focus on whether you have it as a trait naturally or whether you don't have it as a trait. We are going to focus on the part that helps you build that transformational leadership trait, or that helps you nurture that transformational leadership element. And for us as organizations, if you're listening to me and you are responsible for building leadership pipelines, they're responsible for identifying and nurturing leadership, please listen to us from the perspective that you can grow your leaders. Now, as I said this last week, and I'm saying this again, we are not saying that you should invest. We are not proposing. We're not, recommending that you should invest at the same level in everyone. No. That's the truth. That's the reality. Even by what I said a few minutes ago, some people are going to accept responsibility to lead, and some are going to refuse to accept responsibility to lead. And honestly, there's no crime in that. It's okay if some people say, you know what, I don't want the burden of leadership, because honestly, leadership comes with its burdens. It's okay. What is not okay is for you to put the wrong cap on the wrong head. What is not okay is for you to fail to nurture those who are willing to accept responsibility for leadership, who are demonstrating those leadership characteristics already, who are able to accept responsibility for leadership, who are ready to be groomed for leadership. What is not okay is for you as an organization to fail to nurture such people who are already leading in some form and who are ready to lead at higher levels. It's not okay. It's absolutely inappropriate for you as an organization, not just for them, but also for you. Because ultimately, organizations of the future are those that can continuously reinvent themselves. I'll say that again. Ultimately, organizations of the future are those that can continuously reinvent themselves. So at some point or the other, you are going to need transformational leaders, whether you are just beginning or whether you're at an advanced stage, or whether you're over a century old. You are going to need leaders who can continuously transform your organization, who can consistently reinvent your vision, right? Who can always take things to the higher level, who can stretch the organization and the people. Because even the people who do not want to accept the burden for full leadership, honestly, want to be led by those who can inspire them. And that's another element of visioning, right? Remember, we are still looking at who is a transformational leader, especially as regards the vision element, not the relational element, not the integrity element, not the courage element. Some of those things we referred last week. This week, we are looking at the visioning element. Why does a transformational leader need to be able to, create a compelling vision? First of all, because the world is moving. The world is dynamic. The world is not static. Even if you are 100 years old in your organization, I know organizations who are 150 years old, even if you're 150 years old, the world in which you were born into a century and a half ago is not the world that exists today. I have related with organizations that are over a century old, and I can tell you Part of what keeps them relevant is these things I'm talking about, is the ability to stay responsive to their world. And a critical part of how they stay responsive is because they identify, they nurture, and they deploy leaders who can be able to stay on top of change. Transformational leadership is about leading change. And transformational leaders, like we said last week, and we are reiterating this week, do not just birth change leaders, but they already embed into the mindset of those leaders, the change leaders they are birthing, that they also must be ready to birth other change leaders, because that is the only way to stay on the cutting edge generation after generation. My name is Timotolu Omodara. This is the Making of a Transformational Leader, and we are looking at the visioning element of transformational leadership, and we'll be back shortly. So, according to Bass and Avolio, right, who are one of the, so to say, pioneers of this theme, who are one of those who did some pioneering work in this theme, transformational leaders create a compelling vision. Look at that word again. Compelling vision that inspires followers and also values each person as an individual. But the part of their definition I'm interested in is the part where they said transformational leaders create a compelling vision. That's one of my favorite words, a compelling vision, right? Transformational leadership is characterized by the ability to bring about significant change. We've talked about that a lot, but what is it that catalyzes that process? What serves as a catalyst for the process of bringing about significant change is the envisioning. Extremely important. Now, there's another thing that is important. That is the frequent communication of an inspiring vision. Now, these are my words. The frequent communication of an inspiring vision. One of the reasons why the people who you are leading as a transformational leader are going to buy into the change, they are going to be sold out to the change, they are going to get to the point where they are co-creating with you, is because you are continuously communicating that compelling vision. You don't just, because the reality is that for a vision to be truly compelling, it's going to be, so to say, gargantuan. It's not going to be something that, if it's a truly compelling vision, it's a little bit out of the ordinary. It's not typical. It's not usual. It's not what has been done before. I just want you to go back to Apple before it was Apple. Today we all know Apple, but imagine when it was just an idea in the mind of Steve Jobs. It was unusual. It had probably never been done before. So one of the reasons why that vision sort of concretizes in the mind of the followers, in the mind of the people, in the mind of those who are going to build with the transformational leaders, is because of the constant communication, the frequent communication of the compelling vision. So remember, we are talking about the visioning element in transformational leadership. Yes, you have to have that vision. The transformational leader has to create that vision, has to envision the new thing, right? I will do a new thing. He or she has to be thinking about what's that new thing. But for the people to come up to where you are and to be on the same page with you, because you have to bring them up, they have to see what you see. They have to be sold out to what you are sold out to. They have to be, if I may use the word, quote and unquote, consumed by that fire that engulfs your heart. For the people to come up to that level, you also must be continuously communicating that vision. It cannot rest on your heart because you cannot do it on your own. If it's a truly great vision, you are going to need great people to help you achieve it. I'll say that again. If it's a truly, truly compelling and inspiring vision, you are going to need great people, solid people to be on board with you, and together you will birth the vision. You can never achieve a truly great vision on your own. But for them to come up to where you are, for you to bring them up to that level where they see what you see, where they are sold out to what you are sold out to, where they buy into what you're buying to, you must be continuously communicating and frequently communicating that inspiring vision. Extremely important. So don't forget, the vision element of transformational leadership is not just about the articulation of the vision, it also necessarily and compulsorily includes the frequent and continuous communication of that compelling vision, right? Now, let's go on to another element of this vision that I want to talk about. What are some of the characteristics of a vision? Now, this is not it's not an exhaustive list, neither is it a box. We don't believe in anything box. This is just some of the things that the literature suggests that a vision must be, right? One of the things that we've seen is that truly great visions are brief. Think about it. To put a man on the moon. That was all. That was all the president of America said. Very brief. Anyone can run with it. If you're talking about a vision that you want to communicate frequently, you want to communicate and it captures the hearts of people, it cannot be some long-winded, complicated statement. To put a man on the moon, that was all. For us in Amagate, it's always been transformational leadership. I remember saying last week that year in, year out, every time we have our strategy planning sessions, our byline has remained building to endure, because that's our passion. We want to see organizations that are multi-generational, that are transgenerational. Very simple. Typically, compelling visions that can arrest the hearts of the people are usually very brief. And I want you to think about this ahead of next week. Go and look at all the visions, those, especially the visions that arrest, the visions that compel. How long-winded are they? And this is very important, because we lead strategy sessions and we have to help leaders see, business leaders see the meaning for a concise vision. In fact, should I be honest with you, many times the reason why you cannot condense that seemingly complex statement into few words is because there's no clarity. And that brings us to the second point that the literature suggests. Truly powerful and arresting visions, clear. There must be clarity. The reasons why you cannot condense them, why they are not concise, is because many times you yourself are not yet clear about what you're trying to achieve. The moment you as a leader achieve clarity, it's easy to achieve conciseness. I'll say that again. The moment you as a leader achieve clarity, when you are clear about where you're going, then it becomes easy to achieve conciseness. It's because you are not clear that you are not concise. So it's important to be very sure, what exactly am I trying to achieve? What exactly is it that has not been done before that I'm trying to do? What exactly is it that has been done before, probably done before, that I want to do better? Is that your vision? I would suggest, though, that you try to do what has not been done before. Maybe that's the transformational leader in me. I don't know. But I would say go for the moon as much as possible. Aim for the moon. Do what has not been done before. Come up with an arresting vision, a compelling vision that people would want to buy into and be sold into. Something that sparks that impossibility wood in them too. That causes you to come alive, because, like I said, human beings generally have a desire to do the impossible. That's what I found out. Almost everybody. Now, some of them may need it to be awakened by others, and that's your responsibility as a transformational leader. But to a very large extent, there is something in every human being that wants to achieve something great. So brevity, don't forget some conciseness, but before you can achieve brevity to a large extent, you must have clarity. Then it must be challenging. I've sort of alluded to it. Aim for the moon. Let it be challenging. Let it be something that is not that easy to accomplish. Because remember that thing that wants to conquer the mountains, something that wants to take on great things that I said is in every human being. If you set a goal that is too easy, you may not speak to that dimension, especially great people or people who want to nurture their greatness. Let me put it that way, because again, I still believe that there's an element of greatness in every human being. Some want to nurture it, some are not very interested in nurturing it, which is fine. For those who would accept responsibility, we are back to that phrase. Those who will accept responsibility to nurture the greatness in them, they typically want you to come up with a vision that is not that easy to achieve as a transformational leader. Honestly, don't forget that almost every definition we've looked at on transformational leadership talks about leading change. That word itself is a whole lot. My colleague Titilola Ogunshola did a series on strategic change leadership for months. It's a lot to lead change. It's not leading the norm. It's creating templates. It's doing what has not been done before. It's breaking boundaries. Is quote unquote damning impossibilities, saying to impossibilities, who do you think you are? Right? So that element is also important. That's what the literature suggests, right? There must be conciseness, there must be brief, but before there's conciseness, there must be clarity. And typically people want a vision, a compelling vision, a vision that a transformational leader will come up with that would inspire those who want to be inspired, should be challenging. When I say those who want to be inspired, again, I'm back to responsibility. Those who are willing to accept responsibility to pay the price for being inspired, because if you're truly inspired, you want to act, you want to make it happen, and that comes with its own challenges too, right? Now, a transformational leader should also come up with a vision that is future oriented. But honestly, I really don't see how you can come up with a vision that is truly challenging, a vision that is truly, compelling, and it will not be future oriented, because like I said, it's not been done before. Let's raise the bar here. This is not a program for everyone who is not going, or for anyone who is not going to accept responsibility to be stretched. That's the truth. This is not a program for anyone who does not want to be stretched. If you're listening to me, you are ready to accept responsibility to be stretched, because the truth is that as a transformational leader, you should be doing what has not been done before, which means it's about the future. Imagine those who created the Wi-Fi for us, those who created the internet for us. Imagine they did not create it. What kind of world would we have today? Can you just imagine a world without Wi-Fi today? But when they were envisioning it, it was done. You realize that when they were envisioning it, it was not yet done. So you also should be thinking ahead. What is it? Today we can talk about electric cars. At a point, it was not yet done. And even today, it's not as though the adoption of electric cars is widespread yet. How will it become widespread? It's something they're still aspiring towards. So it must be future oriented. A truly compelling vision is not something that has been conquered yet. It's not something that has been done. It's not something that has been surmounted. It's future oriented. That's why it's challenging. And of course, I'm going to keep saying it. It must be inspiring. A truly transformational leader has to come up with a change vision that is inspiring. So don't forget, transformational leadership has a critical element of visioning. The visioning element is a sine qua non for transformational leadership. If you don't have a compelling vision, you cannot lay claim to transformational leadership. You cannot describe yourself as a transformational leader except you have a compelling vision. Again, that vision is not something you keep to your heart, otherwise you are not leading anyone. It's something you constantly communicate, you frequently communicate till it seizes the heart of the people you are leading as it has hopefully seized yours. Very, very, very important. Now, is there an execution element to transformational leadership? Definitely. What are the processes we go through while trying to birth change? Is one thing to conceptualize change, is one thing to conceive change, is another thing to birth change. What are the execution challenges? Do transformational leaders take responsibility for implementation? Big yes. Very, very big yes. So they are not just dreamers, they are doers as well. Transformational leadership is about birth change. But before you birth change to begin with, you must conceive change. You must conceptualize change. You must envision change. And that is the inspiring vision that you then communicate till the people also catch the vision, till the same fire that seizes your heart seizes theirs. So extremely important. I'm not undermining all of those things. We're going to talk about that. How do we birth change? How do we even communicate the vision? What are some of the things that will help us to communicate vision articulately, how to communicate vision in a compelling manner, to communicate vision till it seizes the hearts of the people. So there are dynamics to that, and we're going to talk about that. But to begin with, you must envision the change. Almost every definition of transformational leadership includes the element of leading change. Some even go as far as saying transformational leaders birth change leaders, and they instill in them the mindset that they must go ahead and also birth other change leaders. So how exactly do you develop the skills if you do not have it by nature? We've alluded to nature versus nurture. How exactly do you develop the skills to communicate this change, to communicate the vision? How do I even think of a vision? Some of you might be wondering, how do I even think of a vision? So you have said that everyone can accept responsibility to be a transformational leader. Everyone can develop the skills to, if you don't have it by nature, right? So you're probably wondering, how do I develop if I don't have it by nature? How do I develop these skills? We're going to talk more about that. We're going to look at how do we develop change and visioning skills, and how do we develop vision communication skills? How do we imbue this our leaders with this, the leaders we are pipelining, our aspiring leaders, those that have it by nature. How do we consolidate on this? How do we fine-tune this? How do we perfect this? Those who need to grow it by nature, how do we grow them on this? We'll be looking more into this later. But for today, we just want to establish the fact that you can never be a transformational leader except you have a compelling vision and except you are communicating that compelling vision in a frequent manner till it seizes the hearts of the people. Extremely important. Transformational leadership includes of the necessity, the element of vision communication. Extremely important. You must communicate the vision. You must first of all articulate the vision. You must first of all, envision that change, right? You must conceptualize it. Then you must communicate it frequently till it seizes the hearts of the people, till it arrests them, till it compels them. Of course, it should inspire them, right? And it must be a vision that is easy to catch. It must be concise. It must be clear. It must be compelling, right? And you must communicate it consistently. Well, I think this is where we are going to draw the curtain on today's edition of The Making of a Transformational Leader. Today, we have been looking very specifically at the vision element of transformational leadership. The vision element of transformational leadership. We've talked about envisioning the change, creating that vision. It must be compelling. It must be something that's never been done before. It must be challenging. It must be a stretch goal, like we say sometimes in goal setting, in strategic planning and goal setting. And of course, it must also be such that is constantly communicated. Extremely important. So the people come up to where you are, so you're on the same page as much as possible. And you must continuously drive home these things. They must own it. They must become theirs. And we are going to talk about how do you get onto the path of implementation. But before then, we'll look a bit more into how do you develop this change and visioning skills. How do you develop the ability to envision change, to articulate that vision, to conceptualize the vision? How do you communicate it, especially one, for those who may say, I don't have it by nature, or two, for those who say, how do I grow this in my people? These are some of the things we'll be discussing later on. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We hope you've learned some things on today's edition of the program, The Making of a Transformational Leader. We've been looking at the visioning element of transformational leadership. We've looked at some of the characteristics of a vision. We have talked about the need for that vision that is compelling, and also we've also sort of honed in on why it is important to communicate the vision continuously. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We look forward to hearing back from you. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram. Our name is Armourgate, ARMOURGATE. You can send us your comments, your questions, contact at thearmourgate.org, or you can simply reach us on Facebook. Subscribe to our page on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. You are the reason why we do this. It's been so nice having you with us. We hope to have you with us same time, same station next week, and we'll continue to talk about the making of a transformation leader. My name is Tolu Madara, and we can't wait to have you back next week. Thank you so much, and take care of yourselves wherever you may be. Be good.